All right. So, welcome back to Big B's Sports Talk Podcast. I appreciate all the support you guys have been giving, man. You guys have been sending a lot of feedback, and I appreciate it on the YouTube channel, which is just KoolAidSports.com. Obviously, you've sent stuff to the website. It's at KoolAidSports.com. As far as the website, sent a lot of things to email. The one email, and I've got, again, it's Big B Sports Talk 44 at gmail.com. So keep sending emails there, and we'll keep bringing up the topics. So I'm basically right now, I'm just pulling any topics or all the topics that we're talking about are coming from you guys. So again, I appreciate it. Our podcasts are everywhere that you would get podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're everywhere, still out there. So come join, spread the word, keep passing around. Thank you guys. Today we're going to talk about a little bit of as far as sports is concerned. It's the kind of the big topic, the topic of the day, and it was a few weeks ago. Is this conference realignment with football? Technically football. Conference realignment is something that happened about 10 years ago, and it changed the landscape of college athletics altogether. Teams, it was a huge money grab. And for me personally, I don't think there was anything wrong with it. Now, there was some alignments, with Big 12, and they grabbed West Virginia, and they didn't grab anybody else out there. It was a huge mistake for the Big 12. Letting go of the teams that you let go, that part was fine, but you needed somebody else out there. Thought you were bigger than what you were, and here we are. Here we are. It's a bad thing to say, but Oklahoma and Texas ran the Big 12. I'm not saying they were the most successful in everything, because that clearly was not the case. But when it comes to what the TV networks wanted, those two are what they wanted. Now, for me personally, I don't know why everybody jumps all over Texas. And I'm going to dig into Texas a little bit here. Is what really is Texas? They got a huge alumni base. Tons of money. And they have this gigantic following, but it's always overinflated. For instance, Texas pumps up, oh, we're Texas, rah, rah. Well, how good has Texas really been in football? If you think about it for a second, how good are they? Since 1971, they won one national title. One. Not the 3, 6. No. One. One national title. And they had a good run of about 6 or 7 years. They went to another national title game. They were always in the top 5, top 10, relevant, but they would always lose that game to get to the national title or to get, be undefeated or whatever. K-State busted their butts a few times, because that's what we do at K-State. We bust up national championship dreams. Ask OU. That's what we do. But at the same time, it's just like, what really is Texas? Now, again, I went to Kansas State, so the level for me with that is a little jealousy, because they have all this, they get all this, but yet they're not any better than we are. And that's where it kind of burns Kansas State fans. It's like, you give them all this credit but they haven't really accomplished anything other than 55,000 students go there and they have a ton of money. Other than that, Texas isn't anything. They're not. OU has much more success, has been way more successful than anything that Texas could ever dream of doing. Having said that, since 1985, OU's won one national title. Now, again, they've been in a few that, number one, they shouldn't have been in. I mean, let's just throw that out there. They shouldn't have been in. And when they got there, they got their head smacked. So let's throw that. But they've been way more successful. And they are a better football program. But it's just like they ran the Big 12, and I don't know what they accomplished or what the reasoning behind it other than they just had the name, which that's a huge part of it. Don't get me wrong. That's a huge part. You got the name. People want to see you. You got a big fan base, a following. So we got to put you out there. Okay. If I'm ESPN, ABC, Fox, I get that, because evidently it's about the dollars. It's about the eyeballs. I understand that. So, but let's not get carried away with what they actually are. That's the thing that burns up a lot of people about Texas. Texas acts like they're just big and bad, and they're just you haven't been anything in 50 years. You won one title in 50 years. The flip side of that, the Milwaukee Bucks have won one title in 50 years, and nobody thinks that they're this outstanding franchise. Nobody. So put that in perspective, Texas fans. Deal with it. OU, way more successful. The problem with this whole realignment, and we'll start with the Big 12, is because the Big 12 didn't do what they were supposed to do. They should have added teams when they had the opportunity to add teams. If it was about eyeballs, add a Houston, add a Cincinnati. When they had the chance to add Louisville, we don't need Louisville. And then Louisville goes to the ACC and has been successful. So it's just like, why aren't you adding these teams? Why aren't you adding? I mean, first of all, it was idiotic. You're the Big 12, but you have 10 people. I mean, I know that seems silly, but at the same time, it's like, what are you doing? Come on now, at least have enough people, for your name's sake alone. And then they had the opportunity to add teams. Nope, we don't want to add them. Well, now that things have flipped, and OU and Texas have seen the money grab. And for Texas, it's more of a talent grab because Texas A&M has passed them up. And that's just flat out. The Texas A&M has passed up UT. They've passed them, and they can't deal with it. They got to get there so they can start recruiting again because they just keep cycling through coaches, just cycling through. But they've seen the road, and they've left, and now you want to start trying to add these teams that you should have added before because if it wasn't relevant then, why is it relevant now to add these teams? Because you're scrambling? Well, you should have just added them then. And maybe OU and Texas behind the scenes wouldn't allow it. I don't know. I don't think that's the case because money is money, and that would have just been more money for them. But you didn't do it, and now you just caught, it's just silly. It's just silly. And the Big 12 is, in my opinion, Big 12 is finished. Finished. And it should be. It should be. Other teams, go scramble because the one thing I do know is that schools are not just going to sit here. A Texas Tech, a Baylor, Iowa State, they're not just going to sit around and get left and go to the Mountain West Conference. They're not going to do that. Kansas State is in that boat. They need to get moving. Go get into a conference. Go find it. The one thing about all this conference alignment, and I have conversations with K-State fans all the time, it's like, look, we are what we are. And the people that from the outside looking in, I had to talk to somebody from my hometown that was, Kansas State's not consistent. I mean, they haven't won consistent. I'm like, do you even know what you're talking about? I go, have you looked at college football, the landscape of college football in the last 25 years? And then tell me again how inconsistent Kansas State has been. Now, I'm not saying that they're the powerhouse that they were in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s. I'm not saying that when we were winning 10 games a year. But that's literally what everybody talks about Kansas State as being is consistent. They're consistently a good team. Now, has the talent dropped off in recent years? Yes. But ask OU, did the talent drop off last year or the year before that? I mean, we compete every year. Having said that, the problem with Kansas State, don't have enough eyeballs. And this burns Kansas State fans. It just burns us at our core, is Kansas can go somewhere. I know people are going to say, no, they can't, and their football program is awful, and their football program is awful. Awful is being nice. It is a joke of jokes. But there's not a person on this in America that when you think Kansas, you don't think college basketball. You do. And it's a big deal. And they can go to any conference that would take them, and they'll fit in. And that conference is going to know that their football program is horrible. It could get better, but Kansas is going to find a place. Kansas State, we're going to have to fight a little bit. And that's why I've said that this coming season, this 2021 football season, is huge for schools like Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's been really good here recently, but still, they're on the outside looking in. But Iowa State, who's going to be really good. Kansas State is just, I mean, it's the perception when the conference realigned before, it was, well, this school has been really good here the last 2 or 3 years, so they're really good as a football program, which doesn't make any sense. You have to look at the history of college or of football. And I'm not talking about to the beginning of time. I just take it 10-year intervals if you want to do that. 10-year intervals is a good, metric to measure what your college football program is about. And that's what it is. For Kansas States, the Baylors, the Texas Techs of the world, you're going to have an excellent, because perception is reality, unfortunately. And people won't look that far in the future, even though you should look 10 years previous on what is. They only look at today. What can you bring me today? And it's frustrating. It's frustrating to know that the school that you support could possibly be left out when they shouldn't, because they can compete. They can compete. And it's all about football. And I know I just talked about KU and basketball, but KU's different. They're just different. I know that's not what a lot of people are wanting to hear, but it's the honest truth. KU is just different. It's a blue blood basketball school. Conferences are going, they carry a lot of eyeballs. People all over the country want to watch KU basketball. They just do. And don't say that they don't. Don't argue that they don't. I get it. They do. And you can say they cheated. Look, we got to stop with this cheating thing. Every school cheats. Let me repeat that. Every school cheats. Whether they're giving somebody money to go to get dinner or they're paying somebody's dad $100,000. Everything in between, every school does it. Get off the high horse and move on. Let's just end that debate. So this conference realignment is just going to be, it's going to be crazy. Some schools are wanting to jump to the Big Ten. Some schools, the ACC. Some schools are going to go to the Pac-12. It is just a free-for-all on what's going to happen. You hear about all these rumors and this and that. I think the Big 12 is done, but I don't think it has to be. Now, I think it's going to go away. I really do. I really think the Big 12 is just going to go away. But I don't think it necessarily has to go away. If you want to bring in a Houston or in a Memphis and a Cincinnati and bring those schools in, number one, those are up-and-coming football programs that you're going to have to give them credit. The problem with the Big 12 is that they only give the Big 12 credits, or whatever you want to call it. They give them a reputation of being a good football conference because of OU and Texas. That's the reason. Now you get rid of OU in Texas and you bring in these other schools, well, then the perception is that they're not going to be good. And that's why I think the conference is going away, is because it's all about football. Because we know in basketball, if you bring in a Memphis, a Houston, a Cincinnati, your basketball conference is going to be extremely strong. Extremely strong. Because those schools are better than OU and Texas in basketball, and it's not even up for debate. They're better than they are. And it'll be a strong basketball conference, but that's not what this is about. It's about football. And it should be about football. Football funds everything. Everything. And so the perception will be that it's not good enough. Now, are Houston, they beat OU a few years ago now, but can they do it consistently? Cincinnati, we know Cincinnati's a good football program. Can a Memphis, can those programs, UCF, Central Florida, we know these are good programs, but they don't have that reputation. And the problem, again, as I said, the reputation of a Texas is strictly reputation and not proof. It's all reputation and it's a reputation of nonsense because they haven't proven anything. They haven't, and again, I always reference myself. It's my podcast. I'm going to reference myself. When it was time for me to go to school, I went to junior college after dropping out of Xavier and going to junior college. I had to go, or had a choice of places to go. Texas wasn't even on my radar. This was 1998. Texas wasn't any good. That wasn't a play. I'm not saying that I was the world's greatest football player. I'm not, and I wasn't. At the time, I was the number one junior college, player in the country. So I had a few schools that I could go to. And my dream was to go to Louisville. That was literally my dream. I'm from there. I'm a diehard Louisville fan. But what I said was, you know what? I want to go somewhere and win. I want to win. So I removed Louisville as hard as it was, and it was hard. And I said, I'm going to Kansas State. I'm a little older. I've done my research. Kansas State was good. Bill Snyder just was dead honest with me on what he wanted from me. You can come in, you're going to play left guard from us, and you can come in from day one. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm like, K-State was good. The facilities were great. I said, I'm going because they were good. I wasn't going to Texas. Even at the time, LSU, they stunk. The SEC was not the Big 12 at the time. At the time, it was all about Texas and Florida, or not Texas and Florida, Tennessee and Florida. Those were the good schools in the SEC. Georgia, LSU, Alabama, None of them. Auburn, nope. It was literally Florida, Tennessee. That was it. Now, Alabama, you could throw in every now and then, but they were going through their turmoil, hiring just pathetic coaches that got caught blatantly cheating and kicked them out. There wasn't, the SEC wasn't anything then. They had these huge stadiums, but they weren't good. Georgia, no, none of these schools were great. It was a Big 10, Big 12 world. Pac-12 didn't count. USC wasn't good. UCLA was a fraud because anytime they played anybody physical, they would get their head beaten in, which that's typically what happens. But it was Nebraska world. Oklahoma wasn't very good then. But Colorado world, K-State was good, Ohio State, Michigan, that's what it was. Florida State was also good too. Florida State was always good. Always good. So that's the difference was back then. Texas wasn't anything. They just weren't anything. And OU was going through what it had gone through, and then it got back. It made the greatest hire that they've ever had outside of Barry Switzer. They hired Bob Stoops, and then Katie barred the door. Because 2 years later, they won a national championship with a bunch of guys that John Blake, that great coach of John Blake, that he had recruited. Well, he could recruit, he just couldn't coach. Well, Bob Stoops hired a coaching staff, and then those guys can coach. And I know I'm biased, but those guys coach me at K-State. Those guys can coach football. So OU was good, or got good. They got way better than what they were when I was in school because they weren't any good then. So that's what it's about, man. And that's the whole reputation thing, just bringing it back. Sorry I went on a tangent, but just bringing it back is that it's always about reputation when it comes to this stuff. And it's just unfortunate because Texas' reputation far outweighs the product that they put on a football field. Far outweighs it. I mean, and I know that's going to burn some people, but it's the truth. And if you are honest, you know it's the truth. You know it's the truth. Anybody that's 45 years old like myself understands that Texas had a good, I'll even say 10-year run. But the problem was you thought you were better than what you were, and you got rid of your coach. And you got rid of Mac Brown because you got tired of winning 9 games a year. But 9 games wasn't enough. Wasn't good enough. So you fired him. He resigned, but you fired him. Well, then what happened? You started making these hires. I mean, you hired Charlie Strong, who was at Louisville. The worst mistake of his life, and he'll tell you that to his day. I don't care how much money he got, because he ain't a head coach now, and he ain't going to be a head coach ever again. Which is sad, because I think he's a good one. But he had it made at Louisville, went to Texas, fired in 3 years. They didn't even want him when he got there. They make another hire. Tom Herman. They thought they were back. They won a Sugar Bowl in a game against Georgia that people didn't even want to go to. Georgia players didn't even want to play in. They win, oh, we're back. Next year, not so much, coach fired. I mean, you know, the same thing that happened at Nebraska. Nebraska's going around winning 9, 10 games a year. Not good enough. Got rid of Frank Solich. Nah. 10 games ain't good enough here. 9 games, that ain't good enough here. Haven't been the same since. I mean, you talk about a program that has literally taken a tumble. Nebraska. And they left to go to the Big 12. Another part of this realignment, not Big 12, they left the Big 12 to go to the Big 10. And they have become a disaster of a football program. Just a disaster. Now they got their guy in there. They thought they had their guy in there. 12-20 in 2 years. And if he has a bad year this year, he's getting fired. I mean, Tennessee's another one. Now, they didn't change conferences or anything like that. That's another one. But that's a conversation for it. We'll dive into that in another podcast about these overinflated, programs that think they're better than what they are. I could talk about that all day, and we will. We will. But conference realignment is just it's gone mad. Honestly, it's all about money. And I'm not necessarily opposed to it being all about money. I'm not opposed to that. Because you know what? This is a capitalistic society. Whether you agree with that or whether you don't, I happen to agree with it. The strong survive. I know that's a tough way to look at it, and I get it. But, if you have a chance to build your brand and you have a chance to be more successful and to make more money, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you do it? I'm not trying to compare somebody's job to a university, but if at your job, if you had a chance to go do the same job and make more money and still be happy, you would do it. Now, some people are going to do that even if they're not happy. They're going to go because Texas, everybody keeps talking about how Texas and OU can't compete. They'll be okay. OU's going to be able to compete right out of the get-go. No, they haven't won a college playoff game yet, but OU compete. They're going to be fine. You're not going to go and get their head beaten in. Texas is going to go. They're not going to win a whole lot of games. I mean, they're not going to get blown out. People think they're going to get blown out and destroyed and all that kind of stuff. And that's not necessarily going to happen. It's going to take a few years for them to be able to compete, but they'll be fine. They'll be fine. The numbers are going to, they'll be okay. They're not going to win no national championships or anything like that. And they're always going to lose 2 games a year that they shouldn't lose, because that's Texas. That's what they do. But other than that, they'll be okay. Don't. Oh, they're just gonna go get destroyed, and they're gonna win 4 and 5 games a year. They'll be better than that. But they'll just be another school in the SEC, like a Mississippi State. A South Carolina. That's what they will be. And hopefully people will start putting into perspective what Texas really is. And then if that happens, I think that would be the best thing for Texas, is if they got humbled, which they're going to get humbled, and then they can build themselves up to actually be what you think that you are. Because as long as everybody just keeps feeding your ego, and that was the part of the Big 12, they just kept feeding their ego on what they were, gave you the Longhorn Network, which is a farce. I mean, it was the worst. ESPN, I have no idea what you were thinking. You think people all over the country are wanting to watch some Longhorn Network? We don't care. Nobody cared. I live in Dallas, and I don't care. And again, I know I'm not a Texas football fan, but I watch college football. I wasn't turning on the Longhorn Network, or better yet, paying for the Longhorn Network so I could watch some UT games. Whew, you're talking about somebody just got swindled. Whew. But they'll be fine once they get humbled and they can build themselves up. The Big 12 just fed their ego. We need you, we need you, we need you, we need you. And technically, they did need them. They did need them to bring in the TV markets. Well, go find some other, and that was the problem. They should have gone and found some other ones and seen what would have happened. It wouldn't have been as big as what Texas was going to bring. I get that part, but it could have brought something, and it may have made Texas and OU stay if you've got this other money coming in. But it is what it is. Big 12's going bye-bye. I don't know that it should, but it's going to go. The other teams are just going to, and they should. You got to scramble and go find what you can get. KU is a perfect fit for the Big Ten. A perfect fit for the Big Ten. They just are. I know K-State fans are going to be mad at me, and they're going to cuss me out and tell me I'm crazy. KU is a perfect fit. They have the eyeballs, and when it comes to college basketball, there's not any bigger name. There just isn't. KU, Kentucky, that just pains me to say. I just needed to take a couple of deep breaths. My heart started saying, hey, Brian, enough. But KU and Kentucky, North Carolina's Duke, they're all in the same realm. So people will watch KU all over the country. They do. They watch them all over the country. That's why KU's able to recruit all over the country, and they will fit right into the Big Ten. Now, their football program is going to be terrible, but so is Rutgers. So is Maryland. Now, they're not as bad as KU, but they got some bad football programs in the Big Ten, too. Heck, look at Nebraska. How good are they? They're not as bad as KU, but it's on the same playing field. And I guarantee you, if you ask people from the Big Ten, if you could swap KU and Nebraska, would you do it? Yes. They would do it in a heartbeat. So they're going to be fine. I worry about my K-State Wildcats. I worry about them because we don't have the eyeballs. Our program, the perception of our program is not what it should be nationally. Like I said, I got into an argument from somebody from my hometown. Had no idea K-State had been as consistent as they had been. Oh, you had a few years. What do you mean a few years? Oh, I had to stop talking to him. I'm like, okay, you clearly don't know what you're talking about, so that I don't want to have a discussion with you anymore. The Baylors of the world. The Baylors will, people don't know. Baylor basically sits in between Dallas and Austin in Waco. There's like 120,000 people in Waco. I have no idea where they live, what they do, but there's that many people there. And they don't have a huge alumni base. It's 8,000 people, 8,500 that go there, undergrads. So it's not a big school. But the perception is that their football program is really good. And they have been good. They have been. Iowa State is going to be okay. Oklahoma State is going to be okay. A Texas Tech, a TCU, I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be interesting where it falls. I think K-State would be good if they could package themselves off with a couple other teams and get into the Pac-12. I think that's the best fit. It's not that far from Colorado. Colorado is in it. What's Colorado's football program is definitely not better than K-State's over the last 20, 25 years. You can go further than that if you want to. But K-State, basically from the mid-'90s, has surpassed anything that Colorado could ever dream of. Anything. And is a better football program. I mean, how far do you want to go back? I mean, you want to go back 70 years? Yeah, K-State was the worst program ever. For the last 30 years, that is not the case. They're in the top 25, and there is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Period. Probably more like in the top 20 to top 15. So I worry about it. But that's where conference alignment goes, man. It's all about football. It's all about football. I think it should be because, again, football funds all the other sports. I'm not taking away from the other ones, so people, please don't get bent out of shape. That's not what I'm saying. But if you do not have a football program, the rowing team doesn't exist. That's just facts. Okay? It's just what it is. And we love the rowing team. And we want the rowing team. So you need to have a good football program to have that. Okay, and it's not just rowing, so I'm not picking on them. You don't have a track program either. Or you don't have a baseball program. You don't have any of those. So it's all about football when it comes to this conference realignment stuff. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. It's moving I think it's moving in a good direction. Just keep moving. Just keep on moving. I think that the more things change for the better this will be. I know money's driving it, and money gets in the way a lot of times, but you know what? Keep people on their toes. Make it better. Make it better. We can talk about the college football, the playoff, and that expanding. We can talk about that at another time because that's going to end up being a travesty. You're going to ruin the greatest regular season of any sport that there is by adding 12, 16, all these teams, and then you'll just reduce the regular season to nothing, which right now the regular season is everything. And that's why everybody tunes in to college football, because it's everything. Every game, every single game means something, Just my opinion. But again, topic for another time. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Again, website, www.Kool-Aid. And again, Kool-Aid is COOLAIDS sports.com. Come to the website. YouTube is really picking up, so anybody just come to the YouTube channel, and it's just Kool-Aid Sports, just COOLAID and then sports. You'll see the logo. Click on it. We got lots of stuff. Everything's uploaded there. Again, the podcast is anywhere that you get podcasts. It's always up. We're picking up some traction, people. I told you this was a group effort, and it is a group effort, and you guys are doing your part. You're starting to do your part. I appreciate it. The email, again, bigbsportstalk44@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. We're looking at – we're basically taking every topic that we're doing these days are coming from you guys. So these are not things – I was doing some of them on my own. I'm taking anything that you want to hear, and that's what we're putting out. So I appreciate it. Keep sending all the feedback, good and bad. We accept it all. I just love putting this stuff together. I think it's really, really fun. And until next time, thank you. Bye-bye.